I'm Bree Thomas. I'm the CEO of Affirm, Arizona's designated Title X agency. For those unfamiliar with Title X, it is the nation's federally funded and locally administered family planning grant program. Our goal and our mission as a 50-year-old, that's how old we are this year, nonprofit organization is to make sexual and reproductive health care accessible to everyone, particularly for those who may be or underinsured at health centers throughout the state. Each year, we serve more than 35,000 individuals at those welcoming health centers statewide, where they receive range of low or no cost evidence-based, accurate, and confidential services. This includes birth control, STI testing and treatment, pregnancy testing, cancer screenings, and other preventative services. We are here today at a time when access to and protection of the right to contraception is more important than ever, as it faces serious, I would even say dangerous, threats to being taken away. A report released just this week by the Guttmacher Institute, based on surveys of reproductive aged women in Arizona, Iowa, New Jersey, and Wisconsin, before and after Dobbs' decision, showed vast impacts on people's contraceptive access. The overturning of Roe in the 2022 Dobbs versus Jackson Women's Health decision has had vast impacts on abortion access in the United States and in Arizona. What is less known is the wider impacts on people's contraceptive access. The report found statistically significant evidence that barriers to access to contraception have increased, reports of receiving high-quality contraceptive care has decreased, sexual activity has declined, and condom use has increased. The report projects that the Dobbs decision could have much broader consequences for people's reproductive autonomy. That includes potentially shaping attitudes towards becoming pregnant, changing their sexual activity and contraceptive strategies, and impacting their ability to access necessary health care. I'd like to very briefly quote directly from the report, and I quote, "As continued fallout of the Dobbs decision on access to abortion occur, this research makes clear that access to broader contraceptive care is worsening. Policies that promote meaningful access to all forms of sexual and reproductive health care must be advanced to support individuals' right to reproductive freedom while mitigating inequity and equality," end quote. With that as a foundation, we are pleased to have with you here this morning to hear about these efforts in Arizona to protect those rights, our rights, that 90% of Americans support. We are particularly pleased to have Governor Katie Hobbs with us at this press conference. Governor?
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us. As we are gathered here today, millions of women across the country are worried about what fundamental right will be taken away from them next. First, it was access to abortion. Now, in Alabama, it's access to IVF and the ability to start a family in the way that you want to. Since the fall of Roe, extremists in this state have made it clear they won't just stop at restricting access to abortion. Just last session, House Bill 2427, a dangerous, extreme bill that would have threatened access to IVF, made its way to my desk. With my veto, I sent a clear message that I will protect reproductive freedoms in this state. I'm proud to have vetoed that bill, but the fact that it landed on my desk shows the clear and urgent need to take action now to protect reproductive freedoms. That's why today I am once again calling on members of the legislature to do the right thing and pass the Right to Contraception Act. This is a common sense step we must take to protect access to this critical reproductive healthcare tool. Empowering women to make their own healthcare decisions isn't just good for families, it's good for our entire state. When I talk to Arizonans about the threats to women's rights, the number one concern is what's next. They've seen the right to abortion stripped away. They've seen attacks on IVF in our state and others, and they're scared contraception is the next thing on the chopping block. This bill will make one thing clear. Arizona is a state that will protect your reproductive rights. And Arizonans of every party support this bill. It is not a partisan issue. And yet, this legislation has not even received a hearing. While members of the legislative majority continue to use their offices to push political, divisive bills, this basic, common sense proposal hasn't made it past step one. It begs the question, why won't they codify this basic freedom into law? What do they have against allowing us to have control over our own bodies and access to basic health care? The inaction from those in the legislative majority is a slap in the face to the constituents we all swore an oath to serve. To those who have failed to act on this issue, I urge you to hear the stories from real women whose lives have been turned upside down because their basic freedoms have been taken away. I urge you to think of your mothers, daughters, sisters, and neighbors who deserve to have control of their own body. This is to give those women peace of mind, to not add access to basic healthcare to their list of things to worry about, to show young girls in Arizona that this is a state where women are respected, not regulated. So let's stop the attacks on personal freedoms. Let's fulfill our duties as public servants to make the people's lives better, and let's pass the Right to Contraception Act. Thank you.
Thank you, Governor Hobbs, for hosting the news conference and for your critical and meaningful support. We are very pleased to have you with us this morning, a consistent and committed advocate to the effort to ensure that all Arizonans have access to education, services, and resources for reproductive and sexual health care. Please welcome Senator Priya. Now I'd like to introduce, our next speaker, Senator Priya Sundareshan. There we go. Sorry, I apologize for that.
Hi everyone, I'm State Senator Priya Sundareshan. I represent Legislative District 18. I'm also the proud mom of 2 small children. The youngest just turned 2 on Friday. My older one is 3.5. So I can speak from experience to talk about what it is like to have a young family. And it is thanks to contraception that I was able to have my family right here in Arizona, where I was born and raised, after I pursued my education and pursued my career, gaining important legal and advocacy experience in DC, and then continued to come home to Arizona to pursue my career and have my family when I was ready to. Arizonans continue to see their reproductive freedoms under siege, though, as attacks creep forward across the country. From the Alabama Supreme Court's IVF ruling to bills being introduced across the country that could ban IUDs and Plan B and all these forms of necessary contraceptive health care, to the extremist candidates running on the promise to block all access to contraception and to ban all abortions. Republicans in our state legislature were too afraid to even give our own bill, the Right to Contraception Act, a hearing for fear of the backlash from their fringe and out-of-touch base. The future, though, of our children, their ability to make their own healthcare decisions, is in danger. And my Republican colleagues couldn't even bring themselves to put this bill on an agenda. I found that cowardly. Democrats unequivocally support safeguarding the right to contraception, reflecting our deep commitment to your personal autonomy and your right to privacy. We are dedicated to ensuring that those choices stay between you and your healthcare provider with no interference from the alt-right fanatics. Our message is clear. We will not back down in defending every Arizonan's right to choose what is best for their own family. Democrats have always been at the forefront of defending your reproductive rights, and the fight for accessible contraception is no exception. While GOP extremists push to restrict our freedoms, we're fighting back to keep your personal health decisions where they belong, in your hands, not in the hands of politicians. The Right to Contraception Act isn't just a democratic value, it's an American value. With broad support from all sides, this legislation proves that protecting access to birth control transcends party lines. It's a winning issue because it represents the will of the people, not just the will or the views of one party. Democrats are ready and willing, with bills in hand, to protect every Arizonan's right to contraceptives. It's high time Arizonans, and all Americans, frankly, ask ourselves, why is the Republican Party unwilling to do the same? Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. And next we'll have State Representative Stephanie Stahl Hamilton.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. I am Representative Stephanie Stahl Hamilton. I serve LD 21. Thank you for joining us today, and thank you, Governor Hobbs, for your steadfast support of reproductive freedom and healthcare. I appreciate your leadership, and I am so very grateful that you have prioritized this issue. Just 3 weeks ago, another state upped the ante of extremism for dismantling our reproductive rights and freedoms. The Alabama Supreme Court ruled that embryos created through in vitro fertilization should be considered children. That ruling has caused clinics to pause their services, and this invasion of government interference illustrates the importance of making laws to protect a person's right to choose when and how they begin their families. For years in Arizona, there has been a steady stream of laws passed that add barriers to limit our freedoms and rights when it comes to reproductive care. This issue, is personal. Each person who is able to become pregnant should have the certainty and assurances that they control their decision to be pregnant. Our bodies do not belong to the government. Because there is no federal law protecting the right to contraception, it can be taken away. Some states have already introduced bills that could take away basic contraceptions like IUDs. And so this session, Senator Sundareshan and I introduced the Arizona Right to Contraception Act in House Bills 2678, write that down, 2678, and Senate Bill 1362. These bills were written to preserve in law the ability for Arizonans to receive contraception, for healthcare professionals to provide contraception, and information about contraception. As a mother of 3 children, I want them to have the freedom to choose how they step through their futures. Having access to contraception allows them to choose when they begin their families. By facilitating informed decisions about family planning, contraception becomes a pivotal factor in one's pursuit of education, career progression, and financial stability. I trust that they will know when the timing is right, and it is not anyone else's business to make that decision for them. Reproductive freedom is not an option, it is a right. It is healthcare, and reproductive freedom provides people in the state of Arizona and across the country the ability to control their future and how and when they choose to create their family. Contraception is also a cornerstone of healthcare, offering more than just pregnancy prevention. It is a shame that a bill which simply states a person has the right to contraception, something that more than 80% of people in the United States support, couldn't even get a hearing this legislative session. And with all of the partisanship and policy making, this is an issue that spans the divide. And it could have been an easy win for both parties and our people. Session is not over. Sine die is not here. I would encourage all of you to pick up that phone and call your lawmakers and ask and demand that these bills get a hearing. Nothing is dead until sine die. We stand with all families and individuals on their rights to make the healthcare decisions that are best for them and their families without government interference. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and thank you again to Governor Hobbs for joining us this morning with your important words and your leadership. Thanks to our supporters and members of the media for taking time out of your day to be here, and we'll be happy to answer any questions you might have.
I read that good enough. And right, among the 4 states there was a change, but it was only among the 3 states. There was no change in Arizona. So how do you use that? I read that whole report.
There was a 4% change in Arizona. If you look at Figure 1 on the charts, we went from utilizing birth control, I believe was the first figure, and it went from, I believe, 4 to 7. So there was a 4% change there. So I'll have to look at it closer with you. Feel free to give me a call.
Good morning. Can I ask the governor a question? Sure. Good morning, Governor.
Hi.
I'm curious if you could say, other than these press conferences calling out Republican majorities for not advancing the Right to Contraceptives Act, what specifically have you done to get the bill advanced in the legislature?
I made it a priority in my State of the State address. It's something that took up space in there, means it's a big priority, and we've taken executive action to help protect Arizona's reproductive freedom. And I think it's important to point out that this is an issue that has support across the political spectrum, majority support across Arizonans, and something that we should be able to find common ground and get legislation passed on.
As your
drug is going to be on the market really soon. How much of a game changer is this going to be? For the moment, they can't stop that drug from being Walgreens and CVS's. Just your thoughts on that?
They certainly can stop that. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, for the moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how do they stop?
Yeah,
The fact is, it's over the counter.
Yeah.
It's an over the counter drug been approved by the FDA. Are you telling me the legislature can stop that?
If they deem that contraception is indeed not a right that we're able to have, they can absolutely stop. I mean, we watched it across the country. I don't know why you're asking how they can do it. They'll figure out a way. They've done it before.
But the U.S. Constitution, I know the Griswold case says.
Well, this would be a great way to challenge that, wouldn't it?
Okay. So basically, never mind that the U.S. Supreme Court has upheld the right.
But did you read the Dobbs decision at the end when Justice Thomas actually said, let's look at Obergefell, let's look at Griswold. Those are actually protections that we have in the U.S. Constitution right now, and we've seen what the Supreme Court has done to those. Another question?
I have a follow-up, if I can. Governor, your staff is meeting regularly with GOP lawmakers now. Are you, in those conversations, are they telling them how important this bill is?
I'm not. I haven't been a part of those conversations, but it's clearly part of my legislative agenda. Clearly, it's important to us.
Let's talk about something other than for the moment. The legislature yesterday sent you a bill supported by many Democrats suggesting that they need to overrule certain city regulations as far as lot size and everything else. Clearly, like half the Democrats in the Senate supported that. I don't have the House numbers. What's your thought? This is now your decision to whether you're going to provide for more affordable housing.
That bill has not been transmitted to me yet. I'm still looking at it. What I have been very clear about is that when it comes to housing, I want to see a package that is negotiated and that has bipartisan support and is a compromise with local jurisdictions.
So you haven't decided whether or not you're going to sign the bill yet?
Correct.
But for the other legislation that's passed out of the Senate, I don't think the House yet. It's passed out of the Senate also with bipartisan support of accessory dwelling units.
Same response. Same response.
So these bills have bipartisan support. It sounds like now you're saying, well, if the league isn't happy, I mean, are you basically here to do the league sitting?
No, I'm not. I would like to see a compromise, and that's what I've said from the beginning.
Next question.
Well, what do you think about the principles up an installer lot, being able to choose what your house is going to look like. I mean, in North America, that's how it was. I mean, what do you think about the principles of that?
Well, I think we need to do some things to get housing built more quickly. And I think that our local elected officials are the closest to their constituents and best positioned to make those decisions. And that's why I've said I want to see legislation that is negotiated as a compromise that everyone can agree on that will get us to a solution.
So is anything the league or some of the cities oppose it? Would that be a non-starter for you? Anything that kind of steps on their toes and doesn't have their support?
I'm hopeful that we can see these bills together and not piece by piece to be able to make a broader decision on them.
Thanks. Other topics?
I got one more.
Yeah.
Sorry. Governor, I understand you have a scheduling conflict and had to turn down the Vice President's invitation to appear with her tomorrow. What's the conflict?
I have meetings. I don't know exactly what they are. I don't even know what I'm going to after this, so I don't have my calendar memorized for tomorrow.
They don't tell you where you're going?
They do. I just don't have it off the top of my head. So.
Well, Governor, you're also in the State of the Union. What would you like to hear the president say on reproductive rights?
I am looking forward to hear him say that he supports Americans' rights to abortion, to reproductive health care, to contraception, and that he will do everything he can to protect that.
Is there anything you'd like to hear him say regarding the border or another Arizona?
Yes, I would like to hear him say that securing our border is a priority, that he's hearing from states like Arizona about how much we need support from the federal government. And I'd like to see him push again for the bill that failed in Congress that would have done a lot to secure our border that Congress failed to pass.
Got any answer for the Republicans here with their signs?
Arizonans do deserve safe communities, and that's why I've sent the National Guard to the border. It's why I've allocated tens of millions of dollars to local law enforcement to help keep their communities safe in the middle of the border crisis we're experiencing.
Then why would you veto a bill that they supported unanimously?
They did not support that bill.
Next
Thank
question.
you.
No more?
All right, thank you.
I think we beat you to death.
Thanks, everyone. I appreciate it. I will just say the O pill is going to be between $17 and $20 a month, so that's not accessible to everybody. So that's part of the problem with the O pill. And Howie, just to answer your question, there was a 5% increase in women not being able to access the contraception of their choice or experiencing issues with contraceptive care. So I appreciate you listening, Howie. Thank you, everyone.